Now, a couple of weeks ago, I posted a video on Psalm chapter 1, specifically verses 2 and 3. It didn't get very many views, and I think it's something that's worth talking about again. So here we are. I talk about the Bible all day long. You see, as Christians, this book that God has given us to live our lives, to navigate this world, should be the focal point on how we make all of our decisions and our daily lives, and should show us how we should live our lives, to be the what teaches us how to live our lives. In verse 1, it says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the paths of sinners, nor sit in the seats of the scornful." It's really easy to go and talk to a buddy about some problems that you're having in your life, but if they're not a Christian, they're just going to give you secular worldly advice. But we should look to God's guide for everything that we need to sustain us. It is God's living word. It is living water. Um, and it says in verse 3 that when you take God's word and you meditate on his law, on his word, day and night, that you be planted like a tree. I'm sorry, you should be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Now I live in New Mexico, so there's not a lot of water here. Maybe on the East Coast and other places, it's not so noticeable where the water is. But in New Mexico, you can follow the water pretty well by seeing just where the trees are. You know exactly where the Rio Grande is, where it comes out of the Rio Grande Gorge and goes all the way down to the border in Mexico. And you can tell by the trees and the vegetation that is surrounding the river. And you can find literally any other body of water around here by looking for the trees. Like the trees that are rooted in the ground by the river, or name any body of water in New Mexico, as Christians, we need to be grounded and rooted in God's word. We need to know God's word forwards and backwards. Commit it to memory, spend time reading it every day. Put down the cellular devices. I know I'm recording this to put it on YouTube, but put down our social media and pick up God's word, because we can't commit it to memory if we're not in it. It can't be the water that brings us life if we're not rooted in it and committing it to memory and using it to live out our daily lives. You see, when you step away from God's word, it's real easy to fall back into the way of the world, and then we'll see our leaves withering and our fruit dwindling. Verse 3 says, "The trees planted by the rivers of water that bring forth fruit in its season, and whose leaf shall not wither, and whatever they do shall prosper." And prosper doesn't necessarily mean, financially or anything like that. But what we're doing for the kingdom, it's going to flourish and prosper. When we step away, we're starving spiritually. But when we stay in God's word and stay in prayer, stay rooted in this, and let this be where our energy and our source of life comes from, we will not wither. Stay rooted in God's word. Let it be where your life comes from, and then watch what God will do in and through your life. God bless.